Hello, welcome to my tutorial on how to overclock your AMD FX8320 or 50 per CPU with using the Gigabyte GA-990FX-UD3 revision 4 motherboard. I will put this in the simplest terms, hopefully in the simplest terms that I can explain something without going into the nit and grit or even just going completely insane of explaining every little thing. I'm just going to show you the settings that I use because I've been playing around with this motherboard for about a year or two, trying to figure out everything, how it works, getting everything working pretty well. And just let you know a little bit about my experience from doing overclocking on this system. And from there, we can go and we can begin somewhat of the tutorial. Again, get a couple things out of the way. Make sure you have adequate cooling. You really want a good cooler because these chips throw a bunch of heat out from all that benchmarks or whatever you're going to be doing. Is going to be, you got to make sure everything's running really cool so you don't run into any problems in the future. And there shouldn't be any problems for the most part, but if anything happens, try this at your own risk. I'm not saying there's not going to be I'm not saying there's going to be problems or there's not going to be problems, but most of the time there's probably going to be no problems for the most time. So with that out of the way, let's begin, and I will show you what the programs you need just to begin even overclocking. All the basics at least, and let's begin. So the three programs you're going to need is a CPU-Z hardware monitor and Prime 95. Prime 95 is a good stress test to know if your stability is everything, and it also gives you a good idea of how much heat you're producing so you don't kill your CPU. Well, I mean kill, but like you're not really going to kill it, you're just going to overheat, and you don't really want to go over it. The temperatures of 62 and 70 on the socket, so I'll show you later. At this point, I'm going to open up CPU-Z. It's loading up, and I'm going to bring it from my second monitor to show you guys. So really what we're interested is in the processor name. Not really, but you know, it just tells you what I have. It should tell you what you have. And what we're interested is in the core speed and the core voltage, pretty much. Because this multiplier is going to be set when we do everything. And so are these. These aren't going to be really moving. At least I don't think so, because we're going to set them in stone. And the core voltage is, because this is, how I have it right now is like, as you take the CPU and just stick it in the motherboard and just boot the computer straight from there. So this number shouldn't be moving up too much, too radically, but you can see the core multipliers hopping around for, it shouldn't be, I don't know if it should be doing that, but you get the picture. It can go up to here or it keeps going down. So we're going to set that in things so it's not jumping around, and it's going to be a way higher overclock with that. So this program just shows you a bunch of other stuff, like this is my motherboard. So you've probably seen it already. And some other stuff, memory, dual channel, 16 gigabytes. You can't really overclock if you have more than two sticks, if you know what I mean. You can't really overclock your RAM because that's the limitation of the CPU or motherboard. I read that on the AMD website, and nevertheless, and that's about it for this program. We're going to be, damn it, I'm opening it again. But we're going to open a hardware monitor right now. Okay, so here's the voltages you're going to be reading right here. And this is going to be a socket, so you don't want that to pass 70 degrees Celsius. And here's the AMD FX8320, so we don't want this number to be passing 62. And make sure you have adequate cooling, like I do. Either like a pretty decent cooler that you can trust, or like an all-in-one like I do. And see, these numbers are going to be fluctuating, so we're going to change that. And last thing of all, we're going to be using Prime 95. So whenever you open this program, you're going to click small FFTs, and it's going to open, and you want to run this for some time, and hopefully you don't get any errors. If you get any errors, bring up the voltage or bring down the multiplier and restart it again. Sometimes it fails right away, depending on how exactly you do everything and all that jazz. So I'm going to stop this test because there's no point in doing that. And usually you get like errors right here. Sometimes if something's wrong, and it turns off the core. So this program's very safe. I would still monitor a little bit. And if when you're doing this, you run it for at least 10-15 minutes And when you finally have like, you're trying to dial in the final number and you're trying to figure out exactly, I would recommend you run it for like an hour or two on the safe side, and make sure the temperatures don't go over, because that's not going to be fun in the future. And if you get crashing, you're going to get instability, games are going to be crashing. I experienced that a lot. It's no fun when you're playing a game and you don't get to save and everything goes down the toilet. So pretty much is that. So I'll see you back in the BIOS, and we will continue from there. Bye-bye. Alrighty, so we are about to boot into the BIOS, so we hit the delete key. And hopefully you guys can see everything I'm doing. Yes, that looks like it's it. So what we're going to try to do, first steps, is go to advanced frequency settings, and we're going to set these to 200. Or to the defaults or whatever. So 2600. So this is using specifically the Gigabyte 990FX-UD3 revision 4.0 using the F2 BIOS firmware. So once we get in there, we, like I showed you already, we do this. So what you want to do, you probably want to set this to the regular ones. That's 20 is the 4 gigahertz. So you can set that as now, and we can go, this guy you won't want to touch until you're done overclocking it first. So core performance boost, we're going to turn that off. CPU unlock, you leave that, turn this off. You can use the minus and the plus keys, that's how you navigate around, and the arrow keys. The mouse is very slow, even though when you're like moving it around, so don't even bother. So we're going to turn all these guys off. SVM is virtualization, which I kind of do sometimes, so I'm going to leave that on, enabled. So we're going to disable this guy, and this guy's disabled, and we're going to disable this guy also. So once you have that, most of these are like power saving kind of things, so you don't really have to worry about it unless you want to save power, you know. And once we get all that done, we're going to go to voltage settings, which is under MIT still. So memory settings, you don't want to touch anything over there. And voltage settings, we're gonna leave this as much bare bones, but you get an overclock kind of thing, you know. So we're gonna go to the regular 1.41250. That's what the default is for this motherboard. Or I've seen that number different sometimes, or maybe I'm just imagining things, but nevertheless, you're just going to change this number, and you want to leave everything else at that. So what we're going to want to do is change this guy to medium. Medium, from my experimentation, is the best because it doesn't vary too much when it jumps around, and the other ones are kind of like extreme. Is just like when you actually do something, it just shoots up the voltage to like 1.5. And when you change these numbers, do not cross 1.5. It's almost kind of like a death sentence to your CPU. You don't want to kill it because you paid money for it, and you just want to get more performance out of it. You get very close to it if you're going like really high, like 4.9, but I'm not going to be going that far. I just want this to be a simple tutorial people can follow, because this motherboard is sometimes very kind of interesting or weird to work with, confusing, if you know what I mean. So once we get all that, we can save here, save and exit, but here's a little option you can use to save profiles. So, and then you just save it empty right here, and you can save, so in case something happens, you can go back to that setting. So if you have to restart your CMOS or something because the overclocking went so terrible, you could replace the battery, take out the battery, put it back in, and you would be able to get those settings back if those were the ones that worked. So we're gonna hit save and exit, and we're gonna boot up into Windows, and I'll meet you guys over there. Computer, and I've opened up CPU-Z and hardware monitor. If you didn't get those programs yet, get them, because you're gonna need them at this point. So here you can see we have the voltage that I set here. It's not jumping around as much as I was talking about, how you seen last time. Here it's pretty much locked in at 4.0, with an exception to those last two digits, but nevertheless, these numbers are not jumping around, and the voltage you see right here and the temperature is in the clear, and these numbers are not jumping around. But the real test comes in when you start actually stress testing everything. So like I said, you want to get Prime 95, and Cinebench is another good program if you want to see the improvement of how much you actually gained from this overclock. So since this is an AMD processor, you're probably going to gain way more in multi-threaded applications than single-threaded applications compared to anything else. So we're going to start this benchmark, and we will see after a couple minutes of exactly what happens. So yeah, well, sometimes when you resize the program, it does, you have to manually move these guys around. So, or I'm just gonna, kind of confused. I want you to see this. Stop it. I'm gonna restart the program then in that case. Well, that didn't look like it helped much. You get the general picture. So you're gonna do this test for about 10-15 minutes. If you pass, that's good. You can keep going forward with this tutorial. And I'm gonna run Cinebench so you can give you a basic idea of how to monitor all this and all that. So it's gonna be kind of hard with this tiny screen to show pack everything in here. As long as all this gets here, it's gonna be cutting off some stuff. So we're gonna be going right here, and you can see that this guy's locked in and the voltage dropped a little bit. That's what the load line calibration things that we put on medium does. It prevents that from going too far, because that prevents instability and crashing it sometimes once in a while. So you can see this temperature jumped from 23 degrees to 42 degrees Celsius. So that's why you need adequate cooling. So once you be able to do that, this test will take a little bit of time. But once you get there, you have a general idea of exactly how much you got. So I overclocked this chip once to 4.73, but I wasn't sure because I kept on getting crashing or something. And I got a pretty decent score. But keep in mind that sometimes these scores are not the end-all be-all, because when you do this test once, you get different numbers each time. For me, at least, sometimes I get a higher number, sometimes I get a lower number. So it's just a general, like, just to give you an idea of how much you actually done. Make sure there's nothing running in the background, because that's going to eat up resources and give you a worse score than you actually should have gotten. So as this thing is finishing off, we will see a basic idea of how much we actually came from a normal. So we got 544 points at a 4.0 gigahertz overclock, and I will make sure to get you. And when I jump cut, I get you of overclock to see how much of the base of before we do any modifications. And in the end, I will show you, once we get to our highest overclock, I'll show you the basic differences using GTA 5, since the CPU-based bound game, that will show bigger difference in how much of a difference there is. Sorry, I'm not getting my words out. But we can save this benchmark, and we can reboot and continue with the overclock. And once you keep pushing the core clock up and you're not able to get stability, or you get the worker error or whatever, blah blah blah, you got to push the voltage up a little bit more by maybe click plus once or twice probably, and continue from there. And keep on going until you find your maximum overclock, and I'll be back when I exactly do that. So, bye-bye. Okay, let's go. So here's a little screenshot I took before everything happened, and you can see here, this is bare bones stock, 3.5 gigahertz. You can see the maximum temperature was 40, and the voltages, I didn't take it that, but it was about 1.416. For the most part. It probably dropped because since it was going a little bit. And you can see this Cinebench score was about 3.43, which is about the same as the 4.0 gigahertz overclock, which is probably boosted a little bit to make sense a little bit, as you can see probably in this picture right here. So that would make sense. It boosted, so it should be the same, theoretically the same number. So with that out of the way, we can go and begin with the 4.0 gigahertz overclock and the 4.5 and then the 4.7. Alas, I'm back in the BIOS, and we will continue with this tutorial. Let me move this back over. So Once we get this far, we can continue pushing the overclock a little bit higher than we want. So I'm gonna go straight to 4.5 because I know I can easily get that without any crashing. So you gotta do this slowly though in increments. That's why you have to have a lot of patience for this thing if you want to be precise. Or you could just go balls to the wall and just try getting the highest one you can get. So I'm going to go 4.5 right now, and I know when you have to add more voltage to it, and you leave everything as is right in there. And we're going to go voltage settings right here, and I know I'm going to need somewhere around in the neighborhood of 4.5-ish in a way. And once you get that, click yes and save, and we should be rebooting. And this is a tutorial. I just want to give you a main idea of how to actually do this without, I'm not an expert, but as a person, you know, trying to explain something for you in the easiest way I can. And every chip's going to be different, so I can't really tell you exactly what. That's the external hard drive going, so I'll meet you back in the Windows. I added a little bit more, a little bit more juice and a little bit more of a half a gigahertz to it, more. And I added a little bit more voltage to it. And as you can see, as we went, the minimum for this test was 1.404, and we had a maximum of that value. And you can see the value got here worse from when we tried it last. At 4, we had it right here. We did get an improvement, but not the improvement I was thinking of getting, something like this number. And that one that comes when you have to add more voltage, or just simply going higher clock speed. That's what I'm trying to say. And sometimes if you run it too many times, you don't get a good score like that. So you just run Prime 95, make sure it's stable before continuing, and I will continue pushing this chip until the very maximum, and I will meet you when I am done with that. So bye for now. I am back in the BIOS, and this is after the 4.5 gigahertz mark that we passed, and I kept pushing this chip until we got to about 4.7 gigahertz, and you can see the V cores getting up there to 1.5 almost. And we're gonna be running this chip, so if you want to see my settings for a moment, I didn't do much moving around. And voltage, this is what I set it to, and if that was auto, that would be even better. So 0, because I got some instability. I tried a couple other things and it wasn't really working, but hopefully it will work now at this point, a stage, all of that. So we will reboot and meet you back in the Windows and see how it all stacks up to what we started originally from and what did we end with. So yes. Alrighty, so we are back with the 4.7 gigahertz overclock. And I was doing some experimentation. I had OBS running in the background of this when I was doing the Cinebench run right here. And I kept on getting around 662-ish, a little bit above it, somewhere between like 670-ish. And that's what was OBS running but not recording anything. I closed it and it jumped up to 719. So I cannot stress enough how much you need to close your applications besides these two guys to have perfect, you know, decent results you can compare. So you can see this jump originally was pretty big compared to the original one, which I will have to still get. But even then, you can see the jump that happened from this, almost 200 points at this point. And I will show you in the end a little compilation of different benchmarks. So I'll show you like the stock GTA game 4.5, and I'll show you 4.7 also. So you can even see the temperatures reached almost 62 degrees during this whole entire benchmark, and the voltage is almost 4.5. And you can see that the voltage kind of drops down when we start in between when you run everything and during the Prime 95 test. So you want to monitor those temperatures and all those. And you can see everything is locked in. It's not going to be throttling. Sometimes you can it's going to jump down to 1.4. Sometimes it's going to be like really weird jumping like that. And that's when you want to put more voltage once again, or you want to bring it down because your chip's not able to handle it. So nevertheless, let's jump into the benchmarks, because I feel like it was stable when I did the Prime 95, so I feel confident in this test. So let's jump into the benchmarks of, well, not really benchmarks, but just showing you, well, I guess you could call it benchmarks, but let's just jump in there and I'll show you GTA 5 already. Go back. So here I'm just showing all the settings for all the options. VSync is off, so keep in mind that if you're actually going to be playing, you might want to have VSync on during the time so it'll be silky smooth. Sometimes it's going to be jittery, but for the most part on this clip, it's pretty much like high 50s, low 60s for the majority of the video. Now this is the 4.55 gigahertz clip. So for the most part, this frame rate was around 60s the most time. It hit high and lows both times. Sometimes it hit 50s. And compared to 4.0 or 3.5, it was a much better experience. But we'll see even better experience of the 4.7, where sometimes it hits even low 70s, high 60s, which is kind of the best frame rate if you're going to do that. But it's sometimes choppy because it goes over the monitor's refresh rate, which is 60 hertz. So, in the end, we will talk about 4.7 soon. And this is the 4.7 gigahertz, so as I already said, these hits for the majority of the part here like low 70s, high 60s for the most part, which is the ideal point if you're going 60 hertz. And this is not the strongest system, and this CPU is kind of like 2012, so what are you expecting from the system to know? But even then, this is a very comfortable system to do while you're gaming on it, if you're able to bring it up to 4.7 or even to 4.5. And you just bring down the settings a little bit. It's just, you don't need to be spending a lot of money if you don't have it. You can even build a perfectly good budget system like this. And you can play GTA 5, one of the best games there are for the PC at the moment. And with that taken, I hope for the best overclocking abilities for you guys. And if I helped out, leave a comment if you need any help with anything. I'll try my best. I'm no expert, but just trying to help out. And if you like this video, subscribe and like, and drop down the comments. And hopefully we'll see you in the next one, and maybe I'll do something similar or something. Talk to you then.